New deadly violence in Egypt and questions about how your taxpayer dollars are being used. This is on the first day of voting for a new constitution, a massive security operation underway right now to prevent disruptions. So far, at least 3 people killed in these clashes, and this is happening as Congress is preparing to allow the Obama administration to restore $1.5 billion in aid to Egypt after last year's coup that some have not called a coup, and some do, put a freeze on that money. Our next guests disagree on what is the best course of action right now for America. Doug Bandow is a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, and Ambassador Adam Airley is a former deputy ambassador to the Kingdom of Bahrain and former deputy spokesman at the State Department. Nice to have you both. Doug, let me start with you. Is this the right course of action?
No, I don't think so. We've spent, decades subsidizing military dictatorship in Egypt. We have a choice now between a potential authoritarian Islamist and a definitely authoritarian military rule. There's no reason to get back into that. This is a point to step back and not make that ugly choice. We've never had practical influence there, leverage for our money. Why go and support a regime that really is authoritarian? It's arresting people who are opposing the referendum as it occurs. This is not a restoration of democracy.
The Washington Post ambassador says that it's not just Islamists, as some have painted, that are being arrested in Egypt, but journalists and also secularists as well, and that essentially we're supporting an autocracy more repressive than any the country has known in decades. Is it really worth our money?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I think it's hard to measure the level of autocracy, but let's put that aside. I would argue that America needs stable states in the Middle East now more than ever. The question is not, is our aid buying us a democracy as opposed to an autocracy? The question is the aid buying us a stable country as opposed to chaos? Do we want Egypt to become Syria? Do we want Egypt to become Libya? I think not. And that's why we should give them aid,
Ambassador,
to keep them on track.
Do you believe with the money, for example, that the Saudis are funneling in, which is billions and billions and billions of dollars, do you think our money, our $1.5 billion, buys us that, what you're describing?
It doesn't buy us that, no. And you're right. I mean, it is chicken feed compared to the billions that others are pouring in there. But the important point here is that the United States needs a stable Egypt. The United States needs a stable Saudi Arabia, and the United States needs a stable Gulf. These countries, these regimes are all under enormous pressure. We may not agree 100% with how they're responding to it, but we need to be on their side because they're going to get through it, and because we need to prevent them from falling the way other failed states in the region have.
Doug, the ambassador really touches on a key point when it comes to the debate about foreign policy, whatever country we're really looking at, but particularly when it comes to Egypt. Is our priority in Egypt a democratic Egypt, or is our priority a pro-American Egypt that we can work with, democratic or not?
Well, it's very hard to choose between those. If money bought stability, why did Mubarak fall? If money bought stability, why did any of these regimes go under? The challenge for us is money does not buy stability. Authoritarianism breeds its own problems. And quite honestly, there are moral consequences of giving money to regimes that shoot people down. I mean, they are arresting liberals now. I mean, these people were, supported the coup, then found themselves thrown under the bus. My point is we need to step back. There is no good choice for us. So why feel forced to choose between 2 very, very bad outcomes? Egypt faces a bad future. Whatever happens, our money will not improve that.
What is the risk in waiting, Ambassador?
First of all, I don't think morality should be the basis for foreign policy. I mean, it's a rough world out there. Let's face it. There are bad guys out to do us harm. Al-Qaeda, Iran, Hezbollah, the Muslim Brothers. These are not benevolent actors. And Egypt, strong countries like Egypt, strong countries like Saudi Arabia and the Gulf are standing up against these guys. We need to support them. Does money buy stability? No, but it sure is a hedge against chaos.
And Doug, that is also another point. If we have to be in the game somehow, because if we're not, then we're totally out of it altogether. So what about that argument that the money, and some have made this argument, that the money, despite the human rights violations and everything else, just gives us a little bit of an in that we might need somewhere down the line?
Look, American interests are complicated. You have to be realistic about this. On the other hand, you also have to recognize where you're paying for bullets that are killing people. If money will help buy stability, the Saudis are doing it. The notion that if we toss in a little extra, we get much out of that, I think is an illusion. And the image it sends to people across the Middle East is, we don't care. We are quite happy to subsidize regimes that openly shoot their own people. That's a problem for us, and it's in conflict with the message we want to promote of democracy and human rights. We need to be more realistic there in terms of how we balance. One way of doing so is stepping away from very bad situations where we have very little influence.
Obviously, our money is not just at work in Egypt. It's at work all over the region. And I'd love to have you both back to expand the debate a little bit about where we're putting our money and what it's actually getting us in some other countries as well. Ambassador and Doug, great to have you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.